News updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. If you've watched any of these snippets of Zoom calls that are circulating on social media, Zoom calls with DSA apparatchiks, including chapter leaders, national co-chairs, co-gruppenführers and all that business. It's easy to dismiss them as basically spoiled brats who don't want the responsibilities, the very pedestrian responsibilities that living as a free citizen in America impose. And they may not be good at building anything other than this movement to destroy, but they're showing themselves pretty good at that. They have some proficiency when they're zeroed in on destruction, like this trans thought leader on a recent Zoom call.
It is our job as socialists to make sure that the fight for reforms is subordinated to our program and to the revolutionary struggle in general, to the fight for the self-rule of the working class through a democratic republic and a socialist means of production, and finally to the abolition of class, to communism.
Yeah, finally to communism. That's where it goes, and as fast as they can get there. And it's one thing if it's some, campus group spouting this Marx, Engels, reader bilge, as I mentioned before. It's another thing when they start getting elected to high offices and wielding real political power, which is what's happening. So there's a lot of talk about, and I've mentioned this too, these are people of privilege. This is being led by young people who come from a pretty well-to-do backgrounds. For example, the head of the Politburo for the New York DSA chapter, Gustavo Gordillo, who's got this apocryphal story about how his family fled the Maoist terrorist organization in Peru to come to the U.S., Shining Path, because of the imposition of American capitalism and imperialism, which, I understand the contradiction. I'm fleeing the impact of American capitalism on Peru to America, right? His parents are millionaires. He went to Yale. He dropped out. Then he went back to get a degree in sculpture. He joined the IBEW, Electric Workers Union, as an apprentice, dropped out of that, all while living in a $1.5 million home in Brooklyn purchased by his parents, and still, play acting as, Cesar Chavez Gustavo, basically. The architect of the Mamdani victory in New York City, Morris Katz. $5,700 a month luxury apartment in Brooklyn is where he lives, and, very on brand. He just decided to stop paying rent one day because rent strike, power to the people. Bounced every check, dodged calls from the management company, lied about being out of town, overstayed his lease, then left his belongings behind to be dealt with by the staff. Ultimately, his wealthy parents came in and bailed him out with a landlord. We talked about Tracy Rosenthal, who wrote the book about rent strikes and wants to, along with C. Weaver and the rest of the Mamdani crew, basically start seizing private property in New York City because private property is a tool of white supremacy. As I said, it's all fun and games until you start getting elected to positions like mayor of New York City. For more on all this, pleased to be joined by Daniel DiMartino, Manhattan Instant Fellow, who was born in Venezuela and lives in America now, but he came for the free enterprise, not in spite of it. Daniel DiMartino, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Dan. And yes, you said it very right. I came for the free enterprise. I actually fled from socialism. I can never imagine somebody like Gustavo saying that his family fled American imperialism to America. How does that make sense?
Yeah, well, again, the contradictions are a feature, not a bug, apparently, as long as you're properly antagonistic towards Western ideals, the details don't so much matter, at least according to this set. But I wonder, what perspective, it's always interesting to talk to people who fled oppressive totalitarian regimes like you. And so the perspective that you have, again, coming from Venezuela to this country, and the warning you have about the rise of people like these DSA organizers, as well as the more high-profile elected officials we were discussing.
So my warning is that while the politicians that they support and that people are voting for sound like they have good intentions and they're very well trained and charismatic, the people behind them, like Gustavo, like Maurice Katz, like all the leaders of the DSA, really, they are not good people, and this is something we need to understand. This is not about a disagreement, like Democrats versus Republicans. I want higher taxes. I want lower taxes. No. These are people that, as the recording that you showed, they don't believe in private property. They actually want to come with guns and seize your factory, your house, your business, and if you don't like it, put you in jail. They want to free the killers and the rapists, and they want to put the capitalists in jail. That is their actual agenda.
But by the same token, this is not general antipathy towards legal immigration. I'm talking about from your perspective. You penned a piece for the Manhattan Institute about one aspect of how we do legal immigration in this country, something that Trump touted earlier on, and it hasn't really become prominent yet, but you did a sort of a deep dive on it, thinking about investor visas, the sorts of things that Trump does talk about, trying to attract foreign capital to invest in this country, and maybe foreign capitalists to come to this country and become Americans.
Well, yeah, look, obviously I can't be anti-immigration, right? I'm an immigrant. I think that immigration should be good for the receiving country, in this case, the United States. It should certainly not be Marxist, Leninist, socialist like Gustavo or Mamdani's father, right? But as long as you're not a communist and you're not going to be a burden on the welfare state or a criminal, I think that's generally good for the country. And one of the aspects of how the U.S. legal immigration system works is that there is a green card program called the EB-5 Investor Program, where if you invest $1 million, create jobs in America, you can get a green card. The problem with this program is that the U.S. government is so bureaucratic in how it handles it, the approvals. It takes years only for them to begin reviewing an application. And in that process, the investors have to commit capital essentially to a real estate project where all these crooked real estate firms are getting 0% interest loans from foreigners, right, rather than actually creating new businesses. That's how the program functions in practice. And what I'm saying is, actually, we need to implement the idea that President Trump had come up with earlier in his term, which is the gold card, where rather than have this lengthy, captured by special interest process, we just tell the foreign high net worth individuals, you can just pay to the U.S. government so that we can reduce our national debt, which is out of control, flat fee based on an auction that I estimate will fundraise about $500,000 to $600,000 a piece for a green card, for 10,000 green cards a year. And that would incredibly help us economically, be better for the investors, and be better for the U.S. government.
Just going back to Venezuela specifically, so we're now at the point where the U.S. is receiving about half of Venezuela's oil production, and importantly, China is no longer getting discounted oil from Venezuela, and throw in Iran as well. But Venezuela, since Maduro was removed, what's your handle on where Venezuela is now, the relationship with the United States, the impact that Trump's green lighting of apprehending Maduro has had? Well,
so obviously it was a great thing that Maduro was arrested, and and I was extremely happy about that. I also think it's good what you mentioned about ending the discounted oil for China, not just China, for Cuba, right? Cuba was getting free oil, not even discounted like China.
Yeah.
So all of that has been very positive. What I will say, though, is that while a lot of American firms have gone and signed contracts to supposedly produce, there has been no new production in Venezuela. There are only 2 active oil rigs in the entire country. And the reason is oil is a long-term investment, as you know. Nobody is going to go to Venezuela, drill a new well, unless there is a certainty that there's a transition out of the current regime, because these companies know that if the Trump administration leaves office and they're still in power in Venezuela, then they're going to take their oil rigs. Mm-hmm. So why would you open an oil rig for a return of only 2 years? And so that is the bind that the oil companies find themselves in. So I think the Trump administration needs to continue pressuring the regime to do the transition. They're doing it. They're renaming all of the Supreme Court in the next couple of months. And they're going to name new election authorities as well. So hopefully there'll be a new election scheduled for next year, but we don't know the date yet.
And are you fairly confident that Venezuela will go the way of many other Central and Southern American countries, South American countries, which is in the way towards free minds and free markets?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. Maria Corina Machado, who's the main opposition leader, she's the only person that would win an election, like regardless of what people want or think. Like she's just like the only person polling at like over 70-80%, while the regime is deeply unpopular. So, and actually, and I've met her before, and she's actually very close friends with Milei in Argentina. So I would expect it to be very similar to what's happening in Argentina. And Venezuela, the best comparison, I think, to other parts of the world is, the left was predicting this was going to be like Iraq, right? The reality is Venezuela is going to be a lot more like Poland, where it's a former communist country that becomes free, that is very Catholic, that is not, a Muslim nation filled with ethnic or language divisions or religious divisions. And it's going to become a much more prosperous country, and it's going to benefit the entire world.
Well, we look forward to that day in Venezuela for sure. Daniel DiMartino, Manhattan Institute Fellow, born in Venezuela, lives in America now. Daniel, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And he joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. On AM 560. The Answer.
Signature, a division of Esquire Bank, offers Chicago businesses relationship-first banking. Signature knows your